You are 23 years old and you own nothing. Not a car, not an apartment, not even the laptop balanced on your knees because you bought it used and half the keys stick when it's cold. You live in a room the size of a closet, the kind of room where the walls sweat in summer. Your jacket has a tear in the left elbow that you keep meaning to fix and never do. People walk past you on the street and they see nothing. That's the whole point. That's always been the point. You have an idea. Everyone has an idea, but yours won't leave you alone. It sits behind your eyes at 3 a.m. It follows you into the shower. It's an idea about artificial intelligence. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that quietly fixes something broken in the way businesses actually work. You don't tell your family. You don't tell your friends. You barely let yourself believe it, because believing it means you have to try, and trying means you might fail in front of people who already doubt you. So you start in secret. You write code until your eyes blur. You teach yourself things universities charge $40,000 to teach using free videos and forums at 2 a.m. and sheer bloody-minded repetition. You fail. You fail again. Your first version doesn't work. Your second version barely works. You eat the same instant noodles 4 nights in a row because a real meal feels like a reward you haven't earned yet. Your shoes have a hole in the sole. You know exactly where the sidewalk gets wet because your sock tells you every single time. Nobody is watching this part. Nobody ever does. 3 months in, you get your first user, not a customer, a stranger, testing your product for free who forgets to close a tab. You watch that little green active light like it's a heartbeat. It is a heartbeat. It's a first sign that the thing living in your head might be able to live outside it too. 6 months in, you get your first dollar. One single payment, converted from a currency you don't even recognize on site. You don't celebrate. You reinvest it into a server that costs more than you've spent on food that week. This is the trade you keep making, over and over. Comfort for possibility. A year in, and you're still wearing the same jacket with the tear in the elbow. But something has changed that no one can see. You've stopped checking if anyone believes in you because you no longer need them to. The company is small, 10 users, then 100, then 1,000. But it is yours, built in rooms nobody photographed, during hours nobody clocked. 2 years in, the product finds its moment. AI is no longer a niche conversation, it's the conversation. And you are already there, already built, already tested through failure most people never survive. Revenue stops being a number you refresh anxiously and starts being a number you have to double check because it moved faster than you expected. $100,000, then $1 million. You still live in the same small room. You tell people you do something with computers and change the subject. This is the part almost nobody understands about real wealth built this way. The moment it starts moving fast is the moment you become the most invisible you will ever be. You don't buy a car, you don't buy new shoes, not yet. You buy servers, you buy talent, you buy time you can spend building instead of explaining yourself to people who wouldn't believe you anyway. 3 years in, you hire your first real team. 5 people who report to a name on a contract, not a face they've memorized on the news. You structure the company so your name barely appears anywhere that matters. No interviews, no profile photo, no founder story, thread. While other builders chase a headline, you chase the opposite. A life where the business grows and you don't. Not in visibility, not in exposure, just in quiet, compounding, invisible weight. 4 years in, the number that used to feel impossible, $100 million in company value, passes you by like a mile marker on a highway you're not even looking at anymore because you're already focused on the next one. You still wear plain clothes. Not because you can't afford better, you could buy the building you used to walk past and dream in, but because plain clothes ask no questions. A rich man in an expensive coat gets noticed, gets studied, gets targeted, gets asked. A man in a plain gray shirt gets ignored. And ignored is exactly where you've learned to do your best work. 5 years in, the valuation hits 200 million, then 300. The pace stops feeling real. The way altitude stops feeling real once a plane is high enough. You know you're moving, but the ground looks like it's barely shifting beneath you. Investors want a face for the company. You give them numbers instead. Your product speaks. You don't have to. This is the superhero rule you followed without ever calling it that. The mission matters. The mask stays on. Bruce Wayne funds the cave. He doesn't stand on the rooftop taking credit for the rescue. You fund the company. You let the company take the credit. You stay the stranger on the sidewalk that nobody looks at twice. 6 years in, $600 million. Not a headline, not a magazine cover. A number that exists on a cap table, in a bank's internal ledger, in the quiet architecture of ownership that never needed your face attached to it to be real. And here is what almost nobody expects. You still look almost the same as the day you started. The tear in the old jacket is gone. You finally let yourself replace it, but what you replaced it with is just as plain. A simple shirt, ordinary shoes, no logo, no statement, no watch worth explaining. The struggle wrote itself onto your face once in tired eyes and thin shoulders. Now the success writes nothing onto you at all because you built it to be invisible from the outside on purpose, like a superhero who saves the city and disappears before the cameras arrive. People still walk past you on the street. They still see nothing. That was always the point. The company keeps growing behind a name they don't recognize. Somewhere out there, a stranger opens your product for the first time today. The same way you once opened someone else's product with nothing but hope and a cracked laptop screen. They don't know your name. They never will. And you've realized somewhere in these 6 years that this, the not knowing, the invisible fortune, the plain shirt over a company worth $600 million, isn't the cost of the mission. It is the mission. You are still the stranger nobody looks at twice. You just happen to also be the one who built everything they're standing on.